Thanks, Sarah. Well, welcome everyone who's able to join us today. I know we're going to have some folks coming online in the next few minutes, so they'll catch up. But want to welcome you to a session that we thought would be very useful, closing out 2022, looking to 2023. We had an interesting year, so we gathered some folks across various industry expertise and to bring to you and to share some of their knowledge. And hopefully this will help you make sense of 2022 and give you some excitement for 2023. And I'm going to go around the room and let the panelists introduce themselves. Haley, why don't we start with you?
Yep, sure. So I'm Haley Glover. I'm the Senior Security Consultant for Sapphire Risk Advisory Group. We're the oldest nationwide cannabis security consulting firm, and we help our clients through three main phases. The first one is assisting with the security plan for city and state applications. The second is assisting with the security build out at their facility. And then the third is standard security procedures. So that might be risk assessments, employee training, standard operating procedures, really anything to assist with their security operations at their location.
Fantastic. Paul, how about you introduce yourself?
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Paul Nieboer. I'm COO for Temeka Group. We're a nationwide design build firm with 30 plus years of experience in retail stores, having done over 5,000 stores across the nation. And we've been in the cannabis market for 5 years, having worked on 350 plus dispensaries.
Excellent. Tim.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Tim Morland. I am the owner of Morland Consulting. It's a boutique cannabis compliance, licensing, and governmental affairs firm. I'm also, one of my clients is Abaca. I'm the California market lead for Abaca. It's a cannabis banking solution, a nationwide cannabis banking solution. We were just actually acquired by Safe Harbor, which I think everybody knows in the industry, and really excited to be here. Thanks all.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Tommy, you're up.
Hey, everyone. My name is Tommy. I'm the co-founder and CEO of KayaPush. We are a cannabis-focused people management platform. We help over 1,000 dispensaries with hiring, onboarding, scheduling, paying their staff, all the way through employee engagement. I look forward to our conversation today. It's going to be fun.
Same here. Nick?
Hey, everybody. I'm Nick. I'm the Customer Success Director at GreenSpace. GreenSpacePro is a purpose-built software solution, and we are cannabis specific. And we really like just enjoying talking and working with our customers and helping you through the painful navigation that it is to be a legal cannabis provider.
And I am a panelist slash kind of lead here for the session, and Ed Linetskiy. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer for AnamiTech and GreenSpacePro. I'm also an advisor to the industry. I've been in it since December of 2017, and we're all here and happy to share some of our insights for 2022 and go in 2023. And we know that 2022 has been an interesting year. We're closing out with some challenges, and we've seen a lot of different things come through. Obviously, things like that didn't make it several times, the SAFE Act, and flower prices crashing, and unfortunately, we've seen some layoffs. We've seen some challenges in retail, but we have seen a lot of positive things. A lot of new markets opened up. A lot of new markets opened up to recreational. New York is starting to go recreational. Fingers crossed that we'll have some shops open by end of year. New Jersey's starting to see more licenses. We've had approvals and closer in the South for recreational. So there's a lot of positive things and takeaways, and that's what we're here for. There's challenges in what we do every single day. So we really want to highlight some of the best things they came out of each of our specific niche industries in 2022. And then later on, as we get through the session, we'll jump into some things that we're looking forward to, we're hopeful for in 2023. So what I'd like to do is just go around the room and by the room, the panelists for now, and just talk about some of the positives that you've seen come out of 2022, some of the things that you really want to highlight that are specific to your industry, to your platform. And Tommy, since you deal with people and, if you look at LinkedIn any day, there's people's are really on top of mind. Why don't you kick us off and just really give us some highlights for 2022 and you're really proud of?
I should unmute myself. I 2022 has been a really good year. There, like you mentioned, Ed, there's been challenges in our industry. I do want to highlight something that may not pertain to the HR space is for me, anything that brings the cannabis industry into more mainstream acceptance and reclassification is huge news for me. And the biggest for me that happened recently is the marijuana research bill that got passed into law. It's going to open the door for more research and potentially pave the way for reclassification out of Schedule 1. So that's the biggest step forward that, in my mind, that happened this year. And it's what a way to end the year. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's a good, Tim, I think maybe you can piggyback on that since government affairs is a big part of what you do. Maybe you could piggyback on that a little bit and give some highlights from 2022 that you're really happy to have seen.
Yeah, excuse me, battling a little cold here. Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment that the research bill was very important to a lead up to hopefully deschedulizing. I'm going to say one of the things that I saw as a positive aspect, and it may not, and bear with me, it may not sound so positive. Obviously, everywhere that's aware of the Brittany Griner story, the WNBA player who was imprisoned in Russia for having a vape product. While that was a horrible situation, that did, in my opinion, bring to light the contradictory stance that the federal government has as far as people who are jailed for cannabis uses. And it really brought to light and brought to attention the mainstream of all these folks who are still sitting in jail, regardless of, the so-called pardon by Biden. It's really brought that issue to light, and that there's so many people sitting in U.S. jails right now for a variety of different crimes revolving around cannabis who ultimately need to be released. And there's definitely more public awareness because of that situation. So taking something that was not so positive, but also has a silver lining to it. And I hope next year we build on that momentum and get more of these people out of prisons for cannabis crimes.
Right. And, we've seen across the nation, governors and mayors try to push forward some decriminalization, getting people out of jails and allowing them participation in the industry, right? So kind of switching over to the industry side a little bit, because some of these folks do need services and do need guidance and do need just general assistance in how to navigate this industry. Maybe, Haley, I know you guys obviously have all over the country, and you work with a lot of different types of applicants. Give us some great things that you see that you could highlight 2022. I mean, I know that Tony's and I think he was in New Jersey doing some presentations recently or throughout the year. So maybe some real highlights from 2022 that you guys are really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey, he's, I think, on his way back right now from
Right.
doing a town hall meeting. And, I'd like to touch on city approval was really big for us in New Jersey. And, it's kind of similar to how California does it, is you do have your state regulations, but then you have your cities or local municipalities that have additional requirements and regulations for your facility. And I'll say that I really do like the idea of that. I'd like to see more of that next year. And main reason being is inner city versus a suburb is going to be completely different with your crime stats. It's going to be completely different for what vulnerabilities you might have. So having that local community input of, we have this fear of, something going on. And I think that could be beneficial because, I'll say that from where I live in Dallas compared to a suburb that's 15 minutes away, the crime is completely different. So there's different security practices that need to be put in place for that.
Okay. And then, Paul, how about on your end of the build out? Some of the highlights for 2022. I know Temeka's done a lot of great work, and trade show went really well. So what are you really proud of from 2022?
Yeah, the trade show MJ Biz was amazing. We're still excited about the momentum we got from it. As we look at 2022, we had some pretty epic things happen. We're doing work at the Yankee Stadium. We're doing work at the Mets. We're doing work with Game of Thrones. I mean, these are massive franchises. But I'd say the highlight for us, without a doubt, has to be Temeka Group getting selected as a design build firm for the New York Social Equity Program. Mike's there right now, and we are working hard to get some of those locations open by the end of the year. And
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, right? There's a lot
Hey.
to do in the next 8 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be by far the highlight that Mike and I would say we accomplished this year.
And you know what? That's awesome, because as a originals in New Yorker, seeing this program develop has been pretty exciting, and knowing how New York politics works to some extent, I'm really excited to see something open by end of year, and that would be awesome. Just because it'll be an interesting market for sure. I'm curious to see where all these shops will be open, kind of as I walk around my old neighborhoods. And the whole build out aspect, right, Nick? This kind of flows right into what one of the main offerings of GreenSpace as well. So, as client success, right, you obviously seen a lot of customers go from beginning to end, starting to use the platform, pre-licensure and opening. Give us some of the highlights that you've seen in 22, some things that you're really proud of that GreenSpacePro has been able to help clients with.
One of my my biggest highlights, my highlight always is working with my customers, and it really, and as we grow as a company, GreenSpace, we grow with our customers as new regulations come out. We're always adding these into the platform and always updating, and it's a learning experience for us and for our customers, as we find, because things are ever changing, and it's exciting because, like Paul's saying, these stores are opening at the end of the year. We deal with a lot of cultivators, a lot of retailers, and I know the cultivators are going to be excited when these stores open because they can move their product, and it's been a long time coming. And these markets are rich, and as we see New York open, it's just the first. It's not the first, but it's the first of more states opening up until we start seeing it all over the country. And it's a lot of information. It's really tough to make sure that everyone's compliant, but that's what I really get enjoyment of, is making sure our customers stay compliant and they're able to grow as this industry grows, because the demand is there. We just need to fill it.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, seeing client success is always a pleasure, because we all know how tough this industry is. We know how tough it is to get going and how tough it is to be successful. There's lots of challenges, taxes aside, right? Especially as markets develop. So I appreciate everyone's insight into what you guys really took out of 2022, but I do want to dive a little bit deeper into each of your subject matter expertise. And Haley, I'd love to start with you, because security is really top of mind, as you brought up, which is right on point. Every city, jurisdiction, in every state, depending on how the market is structured, right? As you see from your team, a lot of times there's even a need for presentation in front of a city council or different types of jurisdictions or a state, in terms of what the security of a certain type of facility is going to look like. And you guys obviously assist all verticals. So what I want to do is dive a little bit deeper. Kind of, what have you seen as some interesting developments in security requirements this year, and how have you helped operators, current and future licensees, meet those requirements? Because I think a lot of folks here on the webinar would love some insight into that part of the business and how they can best prepare.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that we've done a lot of build outs this year. It's been a great year for build outs, and each state is different, obviously. We've had some challenges. There are some states that have really extensive security requirements, Ohio being a good example of that, Illinois being a good example of that. I mean, just the requirements for the surveillance system, I mean, it's been north of $70,000. And a lot of clients aren't prepared for that. And, obviously, there's not really workaround. So it has been challenging with that. However, I do see a lot of states going in and revising maybe their regulations from medical, and then they're going into adult use, and they're tweaking it to where they're saying, okay, this was really expensive. And, also keep in mind that security is just one part of it. I mean, it's just one single part, and it's not something that's going to draw, your customers or patients to your facility. It's not pretty like the Temeka designs or anything. It has to be there. I mean, you can't open without it. So it has been a challenge, and it's kind of difficult to have those conversations of, okay, you might have to tweak some of those additional, designs and everything that you wanted to have, just because you can't open without security.
Yeah, and what have you seen in terms of security, right? Because as you said, for something like $70,000, obviously I've seen different numbers all across the board, because a lot of that is equipment. What are you seeing on lead times? Are you seeing the supply chain getting a little bit better?
It's getting better. Definitely had some supply chain issues. I know that earlier this year, I had a manufacturer that didn't have cameras until first or second quarter of next year. I mean, that's a full year of a delay. You can't even open. And so we've had to get creative. We have been working with great manufacturers that have made it available. A lot of the security integrators that we work with, they stock up, especially if there is that temporary, supply that's available. They want to make sure that they have it, because, if those opportunities come up and you don't have the equipment, someone else does, you'll lose the project. But definitely supply chain issues, and the cost of everything has gone up. But, again, there's not too much we can do about it just yet. So
Yeah, of course.
We'll see how
of
next
course.
year it'll change.
Of course. I mean, I think that's probably one of the things you'd love to see improve next year, right? Just in terms of timelines of supply chain and just maybe security, regulators focusing a little bit more on the security aspect and understanding how much the costs are, because, we'll get to this conversation as well. But I have seen operators reach out to regulators and educate them on the cost to some of these build outs. So I think it's a kind of a natural transition to Paul and, talking about cost of build outs and just, what you guys have done in 2022. You've worked really hard to make, I think, build outs affordable to a lot of different types of operators. Everybody wants something different, and you guys cater to, budgets small and large. So kind of what have you seen impact how you guys approach designs and builds this year in terms of being able to manage costs and help operators really open quick and also within reasonable amount of cost?
It's a good question, Ed. So the top 3 impacts for this last year on how we approach design, really number 1's customer experience. Number 2 is the budget for the dispensary. And then number 3, often not talked about, is the physical building. But above all else, we have to start with customer experience. We need to meet that expectation for each customer. And this can vary wildly from like a spa-like experience to a completely different urban or industrial fill. There is no real one-size-fits-all when it comes to design. So that is working with the operator and the license holder and talking about, what vibe and feel they want to present. Number 2, as far as the budget goes, we approach the cost relating to design from a holistic approach. We have to ask the difficult questions up front. We learned our lessons this year. There's no sense to design something they can't afford or to under-design. So we really want to understand the budget and how that applies to the building. And then when it comes down to the building, oftentimes they've secured a location and they're excited, they've got the address, but we have to look and see, is the building even congruent to the experience they say they want and the budget they say they have? So ideally, that building selected needs to reflect the desired experience that they said they wanted. And, as we look to 2023, we expect there will be tighter budgets. We know we're seeing the industry struggling with supply chain issues. We know taxes are not going down. Regulatory costs are still high. So we've offered, and we actually launched it at MJ Biz, this new budget-friendly Temeka line of display cases to help a lot of the social equity and other first timers coming into the space build out a much more affordable approach and save them some money on the millwork.
Awesome. No, that's exciting. And I, a little bit later, I do want to jump into that a little bit more, because I'd love for you to give some tips to our participants here about budgeting and planning and timelines. I think some of the things that I think we've all seen in this industry, as people get into planning, they're a little bit surprised, even as Haley brought up, about what all that actually looks like. And, some of those things that you mentioned in terms of budgeting, planning, banking, and getting the funding to support their business and actually get their business going. I want to turn this over to Tim and just talk about what you're seeing on the banking and financing side. I think there is still a bit of, I guess, misrepresentation or misunderstanding in the industry, where people think that banking is extremely difficult to obtain and we all have to operate in cash. And I just don't think that's true anymore, while it is still not the easiest thing to obtain. And depending on who you are and how you approach your own business, but I think it's a lot more achievable these days. And I'd love for you to talk about that and just talk about that banking is opening up, and maybe what you've seen as the year closes down and what you'd love to see in 2023.
Absolutely. Great questions. So yes, banking has opened up, and in 2022, being very involved in this space, I have seen it open up even more for cannabis businesses. You see data from the state of California where an overwhelming amount of the payments for regulatory fees, for taxes, are done electronically now. There's more banks in the space who are jumping into this space. There are more options for cannabis operators, which is very exciting. And I would love to see that trend continue because that only benefits cannabis operators by having cheap bank accounts. As everyone knows, cannabis banking isn't the cheapest right now because of the federal position on cannabis. We have to do a lot of due diligence on the operators, which the federal regulators really hammer the banks. But the good thing is I am seeing more opportunities open up. I am seeing the prices go down for cannabis operators, which, hey, look, it's a great thing and it should happen. One of the reasons I'm a safe supporter, and I believe, that ultimately needs to be passed to open up that access. So that's a promising sign. I hope that continues in 2023. I know folks are a little disheartened by SAFE not getting through. Honestly, the way they tried to just jam it in this lame duck session of Congress with these omnibus spending bills, whether the military bill or just the general appropriation bill, that's not going to work. That's never going to work in politics. I am excited and hope to see a standalone bill actually get through Congress next year, which, hey, I think it can. It's a bipartisan support. Yes, you have a very closely controlled Republican House. Democrats control the Senate for the most part. With I don't know, how the cinema switching to an independent is going to affect that, but she's still caucusing with the Democrats. So it's very interesting. Paul, you mentioned financing on the build out side. I'm very impressed to see that there have been more options as far as financing for large scale construction projects, or even just short-term financing for inventory or for equipment, payroll, etc. That's all increased. Look, it's not where it needs to be, but we definitely have made strides in that opening up to the general cannabis community.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I think I saw an article the other day. One of the big brands, I want to say it was GTI, got a traditional loan, non-dilutive loan, I think just shy over 7%. And I know that's not attainable to the average operator. We see rates much higher, but depending on what your business structure looks like and the collateral that you may have, such as real estate, I've been seeing much better numbers than a few years ago. I'm not seeing, 18, 20% anymore. Obviously, there still exists, but I'm seeing numbers that are a lot better. So I agree with you. I hope that continues. So thanks for that, Tim. And like we talked about build out security financing, et cetera. And where I want to go next is something that I think a lot of folks who are starting to get towards operational kind of almost forget about, because a lot of times that when you're in build out mode, you just think about build out. Oh, I'm going to get this next. My security is going to get built out next. My shelving is coming in, these things coming in, and then you kind of forget about hiring, or you're forgetting out building out your policies for employees, or you forget about just general operations. And Tommy, what I've seen you guys do lately, I've seen you guys put out a lot of education, which I think is great. I think education is vital in this industry, and I think more operators should be educating their employees on every aspect of the business as early as possible, and really engaging type of education, and not kind of traditional, here's a PowerPoint slide, read through it, come back and go sell or go manage inventory, whatever. So I'd love for you to talk about a little bit more about what you guys are doing at KayaPush, which I think is tremendous. I've seen you guys get a lot of traction, how you're approaching the business, and just give some pointers to our industry participants and how they can be more successful, because our employees are our lifeblood, right? Without our employees, we're not successful. We can't drive revenue. We can't drive basket sizes. We can't retain customers. You need that, and you need that part of the business to be live and successful. So I want to hand it over to you and just give us whatever knowledge you can. That'd be fantastic.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, in our industry, we do have a very high employee turnover rate, and it's a struggle to really get employees bought in to the vision that that dispensary owners have. And I'm going to say something very controversial. And the biggest problem that I see that we have in this industry that we're tackling is employee engagement. Is how do we get our team engaged, bought into the vision, right? And what I've found working with over 1,000 dispensaries is the best dispensaries that tackle this problem at the very heart are the ones that focus on employee growth, right? Growth beyond the role that the employees are in. And the controversial part of this is oftentimes successful employers that have a really high engaged team generally ask their employees, how can I help you get your dream job, right? And really focus in on growth. So what's the role that you want in 5 years, inside, outside of this business? What skill set do you need to help develop for this role? And how can I leverage our business to help you develop these skill sets that you need for your future? And it is essentially what you're saying is, how can I help you develop the skill set so you can leave my business? Which is very
true
for a business owner, right?
Right.
Because business owners want their employees to stay around forever, but the actual reality is the bud-tender role is entry level, right? It's likely part-time, it's transient, and it doesn't pay a lot, right? So it's a very transient role, and you have to really think about kind of the employee in that situation. So it's not, just because somebody works for you, you start a business and you hope and pray that your team cares about your business as much as you do, right? But why should they? And that's the question that really, really successful dispensaries really think about, is why should somebody care about your business if they don't feel like you care about their future, right? So the best run dispensaries, and if there's one piece of advice that I want to give, is think about that question and tackle that question at its heart. And once you once employees feel like you care about their future, it's walking downhill after that. It's so much easier to create an environment that's fun, that's rewarding, that's challenging when people are bought into what you're creating.
Thanks for that. I mean, I agree with you completely. I've seen that a lot. And I want to say, I've seen it probably more at retail than in other verticals, because in other verticals, you're growing and maybe people are passionate about growing. You're manufacturing, you're passionate about making the best oil. At retail, there's a lot of turnover at retail. And because a lot of times folks come in and there's no program. There's no program for advancement. There's no advanced career training. There's no access to managers. There's no access to business. And, in traditional business school, that's one of the things that they teach you is how to get people motivated. And you really need to figure out what drives your employees, and that's through employee engagement. So 100% on point. And I really hope people take that away for next year. And so thank you for that. And we'll get back to some more KayaPush and HR aspects a little bit later on, and about halfway through here, because I want to kind of bring it all together and let Nick talk a little bit about the customer success side of things and really what you've seen through the platform customers be able to achieve throughout the life cycle of the business, right? Because you start at the very beginning when they're just considering, let's say, an application or a real estate location, we're leading up to the application all the way through build out, all the way through licensing and thereafter. So what can our participants look to the system, for example, just some general guidance about how they can better manage their overall process, pre-operation and post-operation, and what have you seen some of the successes what that looks like?
So I think one of the key words I just like to bring up, especially with GreenSpace and customers, is organization and communication. I found with a lot of retailers, especially, there's a lot of disconnect between the top down to the bottom, and things slip through the cracks. The accountability isn't there. And GreenSpace has been a great product to bring everything together to use one platform instead of using email, Google Sheets, Dropbox. Things slip through the cracks. What I found with customers on GreenSpace, especially this year and looking forward, is that it's been able to get their team together onto one thing that they all use to make sure they get from the start to the end, whether it be the beginning of a build out to once a store is up operational, and for them to be able to, like, say Tommy was talking about, engaging with your employees, giving them tasks, like having something for them to look forward to the future. Okay, this is a task that you need to get done, and I'm empowering you to do this. And I'm going to see your progress, and I can just see it on here. I don't need to micromanage you because everything is highlighted out. And one of the things I've really got excited with customers is their use of the platform, because everybody uses it a little bit differently, whether it be compliance, for build outs, for HR, or for, everything. And what we do is we listen to our customers, and from them, GreenSpace has evolved over the last 6-7 months, and I can't wait to see what it becomes in the next year, because we learn more from our customers than we do from, we all talk here and we're experts, but you guys are in the field more than we are, and you're the experts. So talking with my customers is so invaluable, and it adds things into the platform that you'll see, because we're constantly updating and adding new features and adding new templates, things like that, that it's just, it enhances your experience as things are dynamically changing, and it's different across parts of the industry, whether it be retail, whether it be cultivation or manufacturing. But it also allows you, because all of these are included within GreenSpace, to go through and kind of see what's going on in manufacturing. You can go through and see their templates. You can see retail. You can see, their timelines for build outs. And it's, and at the same time, if you need someone to even vent to about your business, because it's something that is frustrating, like, that's why we're here, and we're here to help. So it's been an exciting 2022, and I can't wait for 2023, because big things are happening. And as we get more feedback and more users on the system, it's just growing and evolving to a better place.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Anybody else from the panelists want to jump in and provide any insight or advice to our participants going into 2023, how to, operate better, be more mindful about how they run their business and their budgets? Feel free.
I would just say this. I know we're probably talking to a wide range of, of different types of businesses and sizes of businesses. What I'm seeing in the California market a lot is people running lean. And I advise you to do that in 2023. I advise you to run as lean as a ship as you possibly can. Stay lean and mean. Do not make the mistake of going out too big. There's just the space is littered with companies who decided, I'm just going to throw everything at this, and I'm going to go big and invest all this money, and they're out of business right now. And I've worked for one of those. I won't name names, but they're out of business right now. So run lean, run mean, and be able to adapt to what's coming, because there's some things I can kind of see coming, in the California market and elsewhere. I'm very intrigued by New York and seeing how it plays out. If it's a lot like California, which I'm kind of thinking it is right now, but maybe not, hopefully not. So that would be my advice to you. Obviously pay for the things you need, your compliance, retaining staff and things like that, the really essentials, but don't get crazy. Don't, look at your marketing budget a little bit. Maybe you don't need to go out and spend, 30% of your marketing budget. Maybe it's something smaller, but just stay lean, just stay mean. And I think that's the best chance of survival in this crazy, crazy market, which will probably get a little bit crazier in 2023 as well.
As a follow-up to what Tim just said, is if layoffs continue, I'll piggyback onto Nick and say that GreenSpacePro is a IP aggregate. It is scary how many companies run their entire organization off of a spreadsheet that can leave with an employee. If they get all that IP data into GreenSpacePro, no matter what changes happen on the HR side, all of that data is centralized and safe, secure. So great, Nick, I agree with you. There's gonna be some exciting things in 2023 as people start using that software more and more.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to what Tim's saying too about running lean, because you know, consultants are expensive to come in and have that type of compliance to come in. And GreenSpace offers a tool that gives you all this information at a pretty low cost, while also talking to people that know the industry. So it's a way of, and as Tommy brought on too, about turnover. And it's, you are able to keep all your information, and when you bring somebody else in, you just invite them into your green space and it's all right there for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave with you, it just stays.
Good.
You know, I'll add that from what I see in working dispensaries, the dispensaries that win are the businesses that are intentional with the key business processes. So, you know, what are your key processes that drive your engine, that drive your business? Do you have a process for hiring? Do you have a process for onboarding employees? What does the training process look like? What is the environment that you're creating that is fun, challenging, and rewarding, right? And is there a process in place? And have you thought through on the environment that you want to create, the experience that you want for your employees? Because the ones that win are the businesses have thought through this and are very intentional with what the employee experience is. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your employees that are the ones that are talking to the customers. It's not you, it's your employees are the ones that are driving your business, right? So the best run business that I see are very thoughtful on the environment that they want to create for their team.
And, you know, I'll just to add on to that is, you know, I recommend to clients, go to dispensaries, go to a cultivation, go and ask them what works, go and ask them what didn't work. I mean, they're the ones who have been operating and they've already been through this. They can give you an idea of where those costs might be that would be out of budget. And so you can kind of go and see what you would like to implement in your facility, what you would not like to implement, but also get a good idea of what those day-to-day operations look like by being there, being present, and asking those questions. And, you know, I think that's kind of how you can prepare yourself of what you want your customer experience to be like, what you want your employees to be like. And, you know, I think, again, no better way of doing that than going and speaking to the people who have been open and operating for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Obviously, we're seeing a trend here of cost, right? 20, you know, going back years, right? You're right. There was a lot more spending. Money was a little bit freer. Capital markets were better. Family offices were giving out money a lot easier, right? The risk appetite was there, but the market in general has changed a little bit where we are today, as you guys even see the broader markets. So giving that, one of the pieces of advice obviously we're offering, and I'm sure a lot of folks here on the webinar have been thinking about it too, is how to best manage costs. And, you know, we have a few minutes left before we jump into questions. So one of the things that I've seen through both clients and just general industry and going into dispensaries, which I think, Haley, is extremely important, is that sometimes you walk in and there are 5, 6, 7 employees on the floor doing nothing. I mean, it's fine, you can clean, the dispensary needs to be clean, but ultimately that's your bottom line. So Tommy, you guys run an HR platform, you guys have scheduling, right? So can you give us maybe some couple of high-level bullet points on what is the best practice about how to manage scheduling employees?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm just thinking through on different environments that I've seen, and the best environment that I see are environments that not only think through about, hey, what is the minimal amount of employees that I need for, you know, to run, right? So on a Friday, you're probably likely very busy and you need more employees. So just thinking through on the bodies that you need versus how busy times are, right? And planning for that. But also looking at your team, not from a cost savings kind of exercise and what is the minimal, but also from a high performing team environment. So do I have the right mix of people in place to service the customer more effectively? You know, is my team asking customers the right questions, right? To upsell them the right products. So it's not only scheduling employees and, you know, reducing the costs, you know, compared to sales that are coming in, but also having the right training and the right mix of employees to create that environment.
No, fantastic. And again, going back to focus on your people, right? You don't only just want to have bodies, warm bodies to service the client that comes in and out, right? You want to have the right bodies. So, you know, my philosophy has always been, and I know this may not be a popular philosophy, is it's okay to pay a little bit more for and to your employees, so they're more motivated on a day-to-day basis and think that they're valued, and also they're the right type of employees for the business that you're trying to accomplish, right? Maybe your trimmers are your trimmers, okay, fine, right? But there are other, and not to say that there's anything, you know, you can't hire better trimmers because better trimmers result in less waste, right? So there's misnomers about a lot of different kind of, I think, entry-level positions in the cannabis industry that people really don't look to and don't really assess or reassess for maybe a comparable vendor that can lead to better bottom lines. And so thanks for that, Tommy. And I'd like to get to Paul and ask a pocket question here, Paul. And really, where do you think, as the new licensees are getting going, because I know you guys are, you know, Temeka is really active in New York, and I think you guys are active in New Jersey, and hopefully you guys will be active in Florida with all the new license applicants that are coming in, because we know Florida's unlimited dispensaries per license. I mean, I don't know how many we're going to have over there. It's going to be probably another couple of thousand dispensaries in the next couple of years in Florida. So as applicants are looking to build outs, right? Maybe what are some of the common places that they can win out a little bit and have some additional savings when they are planning their build out?
You know, it comes all back to the building. We'll say this 1,000 times. It is so important that the infrastructure of that building is budget friendly, meaning we just had a project, great location, but the air conditioning was 25 years old. So we had to replace 2 units. So that ends up costing an extra $50,000 just to get those new air conditioning units. And the lead times are awful. It's 24 weeks to get air conditioning units. So that drags it out. Electrical systems, upgrading electrical panels, a lot of cost to that. Roofing, parking lot. Is the parking lot in good shape, or do we have to grind it down and re-pour that asphalt? So there's a lot of what I would call infrastructure costs that you could get excited over an address and go, I got a great address, I got a great location, but what is the impact of that on the budget? And certainly before any leases get signed, or even early on the application phase, I know it's hard to do a quick audit, but we highly recommend do an audit to see if this location fits within your budget. We are encouraging all of our customers to do a top-down budget for 2023. Let's look at the all-in cost. Let's not just look at what the sales floor experience would cost and the millwork and the interior and the experience, but let's look at everything. Earlier, Haley mentioned Ohio and how difficult Ohio is on the regulations. The safes and the vaults in Ohio cost way more than other states. You know, those are hard costs that you throw in $60,000, $70,000 that you weren't anticipating. So if we can early on identify a location, talk about the building and say, you might have $200,000 of cost, just get the building usable before we start doing it. What's the difference of that versus finding a building where it's in good shape, it can quickly open and not spend all that money? That's a win-win. So, you know, challenging the real estate teams, find the good real estate, but also find a good building that supports it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And you know what, I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit and say that, you know, in terms of saving cost, as you expand or as you look at new jurisdictions, don't automatically stick with the knowledge that you have from prior operations, right? So if you know how California operates and you're going into New York, don't assume you need the same things. Or New Jersey. New Jersey is actually a perfect example. So I'm very familiar with the New Jersey market, New Jersey regulations, and New Jersey security regulations at a state level, not talking about city level, are basically non-existent. I mean, they're there, but there's no pixelated camera requirements. It's very, very minimal. So don't automatically come in assuming that you need the best top of the line cameras to install in your facility that are $1,000 each. Depending on the size of your facility and what you're trying to accomplish, hey, maybe that is what you need, but maybe not. So really look at all your costs and make sure that you know your regulatory requirements, both from the state and the city. And once you know that as your baseline, as Paul was saying, then outline your costs and say, okay, well, these are my minimal requirements. Do I want to go with minimal, or do I want to go a step up? What are the benefits between the lowest cost and the higher cost, right? Really analyze what you want as an operator and understand your own budget and your ability to be successful within that budget. Because after CapEx, there's OpEx, right? And if you can save on the CapEx, you have more for OpEx, and then you could save on interest, and you could save on loans, you could save on dilution. I think those things are very important. And I'm going to bring that out a layer above. And Tim, I'd love your input here. Right now, New York has a open comment period for the regulations. New Jersey had regular comment periods for regulations. California, every state, whenever they roll out new jurisdictions, I don't want to say every state because I don't know every state, but for the most part, every state that I've operated in, there's comment periods. And I want to say it is extremely vital for everyone to comment, get together in groups, do it individually, do both, because the regulators do take these into consideration. Some regulators more than others, but for example, New York has seen 2 versions of medical updates to regulations based on comments. New Jersey, I've seen changes happen. California. So I think people overlook and they think that their words can't impact regulations, and they, as a matter of fact, they can. So please don't sleep on making comments to regulations. Whether you're planning on being an operator or you're going to be an ancillary service like a consultant, an attorney, do read the regulations. And if you think something doesn't make sense from a business success standpoint, make a comment. The worst they can do is not pay attention to it and no change will happen. The best that can happen is that they'll listen and they'll actually make an amendment. One thing that I saw in New York, for example, on the medical side, they doubled the requirement for on the medical side for battery retention, for battery life to support the surveillance system. That's expensive. That's really expensive. And now you have to expand your DVR. I mean, it's crazy stuff, right? So stuff like that, you want to take the time and you want to make those comments and be mindful, as we talked about here throughout this whole presentation, be mindful of how you approach it, because you want to create a real business case and include some real numbers, not just say this makes no sense and submit that, because those comments generally don't get reviewed. So Tim, I know you obviously work with a lot of governments. Can you chat about that a little bit and what you've seen in your career, how comments really impact potential changes in the regulations?
Yeah, absolutely. Ed said it best. You have to comment. It doesn't matter what size operator you are or where you're at in the process, if you're ancillary company, whatever, commenting. And I would take it a step above, showing up to these meetings that these regulators have, because they have to have open meetings. They have to allow comment. That could be via Zoom or in person. Right now, California, all of the regulatory comment meetings are all held over Zoom. We have a Department of Cannabis Control Advisory Committee, etc. But get your voice in there. And this comes from someone who worked in politics, who worked for elected officials, who worked for, on the regulation side, on the tax regulation side. If we get a flood of comments about a proposed regulation that's coming in and they're not positive, staff and the elected officials are going to pay attention. And I know, people are like, well, my voice doesn't matter because I'm not well funded or this or that, but it actually does. I'll give you an example of something that happened in California very early on when they were rolling out regulations. Delivery was going to be banned in California. It was going to be done with. At least until some other regulation was passed or some other bill. But the industry as a whole really just kind of chimed in and commented on all that, showed up to the DCC, or at that time it was the BCC, the Bureau of Cannabis Control meetings. And they really essentially raised the stink and got those regulations out. There was a couple of other regulations as well. And just on the flip side, if you don't comment, the big money interests are going to comment. And you might see a situation like what happened in California also is where early on, there was a cap on the size of a grow you could have in California until 2023. Well, someone decided to get in with the regulators and kind of essentially create kind of a workaround where you could stack small licenses and basically have unlimited cultivation, which I think we're still filling. Well, obviously in California, we have an overproduction problem. And I think that ruling way back when really created a lot of damage for the California market. So if you're not commenting, somebody is, that voice is going to get heard. And that's ultimately what the regulations and the laws are going to look like.
Thanks, Tim. So we have about 10 minutes left. There were a few questions that I want to get to before we kind of close this out. Let's see. First question is, can we please share experience with the New York market and any predictions? There are some bonus points if we talk about vertically integrated micro, and then talk to we're partnering with social equity minority-owned businesses in the space. I'll take a part of that, and I think several of us here can handle the second part here. So New York has been an interesting and developing market. It's trying to get going, and it's had its challenges. Hopefully it kind of steers in the right direction and we'll get going soon. There's been some lawsuits. It's going to be a great market ultimately because the illicit market in New York, again, as a New Yorker, I grew up in Brooklyn. It's been strong for a really long time, and honestly, it's not going away. I think a lot of folks comparing the New York market to California. I've heard recently some of the folks that have visited New York and said there's just as much California product in New York as there is in California. So, you kind of, whether it's legitimate or illegitimate, I don't know, but it kind of gives you an anticipation of what we're going to expect to see as the market develops and the challenges that the market's going to have. It's going to be lucrative, but I also think it's going to be challenging. As Tim said, I think it's following a lot of the path of California, at least from the market perspective, while the regulators are really trying to avoid the California model to some extent, and they're trying to give a leg up to the newly issued card licenses, because the current proposal of the adult use regulations is prohibiting the existing medical operators, the registered organizations, which have 4 dispensaries each all over the state, from joining the adult use market for 3 years from the day, if I remember correctly, the way it's written, from the date of the first sale of legal cannabis. So again, these are just draft regulations, hence the comment periods, and it's important to comment, but also keeping the existing operators out. I think there's going to be we'll see what the supply looks like. There's a lot of flower in New York, but I'm not sure how much other product other than the flower is available, because a traditional manufacturing facility takes a while to stand up. So very curious to see how it develops. It's going to be very interesting. I think the market is going to definitely multiply exponentially next year just because of the licenses that were issued. And there will be other licensing periods that folks who weren't eligible for card or didn't get a card license are going to be able to apply next year based on what I'm seeing. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for small business for sure. And New York is really trying to make sure that happens. I'm sorry that I will not be getting any bonus points for this. I haven't really dove too far into vertically integrated micro business in general. That is a concept in New Jersey. That is a concept in California. It's a concept in other states. It's an interesting concept that you could basically do everything if that's the same thing in New York. It all depends on the limitations. I can speak to it a little bit better on the New Jersey side, and it's pretty limiting on the New Jersey side. You're limited both from a volume standpoint, as well as a space standpoint. So just pay attention to your limitations and kind of take into consideration what everybody said on this panel. As you're working on your business model, see if the vertically integrated micro business is right for you. Like, can you be profitable? Can you sustain your business? Can you take care of your employees? Can you pay your vendors, right? Really plan out and understand what you can do under the vertical model before you go full steam ahead. In terms of the last part of this question, partnering with social equity and minority-owned businesses, I think everyone here on this panel has done that. at some point in time. I know, Paul, you guys are doing that actively in New York right now. Maybe, and Tommy, you guys as well. And hey, I think everyone here, maybe mine, Tim, but everyone here is partnering in New York specifically because it's so fresh. And I know a couple of the businesses here have been on that first opening Bronx kind of tour. So maybe Paul, Tommy, Haley, you can give kind of a minute each on what that's looked like for you and how you're approaching that.
Yeah, I think the pop-up experience that we did at the Bronx, we were amazed, almost overwhelmed at how grateful and appreciative the experience was. As we offered advice, we provide a list of steps. It's almost like, here's a store in a box and here's a model of how to get from an address to the keys. And over and over and over, we were told, thank you, thank you, thank you. We did not know. And that education and that partnering to say, hey, you're not in this alone. You're a part of our family. And we've got some really good partner vendors, all of us here on the call, who can bring something to you to help you get open. And that's partnering at its finest. We really wanted to come alongside, offer them programs and ways to finance and make this happen so that they don't feel like they're going to lose out to somebody else who has the money or the experience. And the Bronx was really a test. I think we're going to do more of those in more areas as well. I think that was the first of many to come.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, I think that the education piece is huge. I mean, there's obviously a lot of unknowns. One state to another is difficult. And, with the social equity programs, there are a lot of states where they provide that education to you. And so, if it is available, definitely use those resources. I know that we work with a lot of social equity applicants, and once they get their license, we work with them on where can we save you some money? Because again, security is just one piece of this huge project, and we want clients to be successful. We want them to remain open. And so anywhere where we can help you throughout that process and provide any education or input, we will. Again, there's a lot of moving parts. So again, just go back with that education, see what resources you have locally, what you have nationwide, and utilize them.
I just want to throw out a shameless plug for Abaca. We do offer social equity accounts for obviously social equity operators. They offer them 2 years of, we waive the monthly fee. So that's 2 years, to get someone up and started. So feel free to contact us, but that's our way of helping with social equity. So sad to hear about the brands not being able, the medical brands not being able to come over in New York right now. We made that mistake in California. I worked in the industry a couple months before legalization went into effect. And day one of legalization, we went from 3,000 medical dispensaries to 100 dispensaries. And we lost hundreds of brands, hundreds of legacy brands that made exceptional products, and they're gone, and most of them haven't come back. So really sad to see that. Hopefully that changes.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. All right, guys, we're at time. There was one other question that we weren't able to get to. It talks about systems and whether a single solution providing all systems would be beneficial or not. And I don't see the individual on the call is more than happy to answer that at a later time if that comes in. But I want to thank all the panelists and for joining today. I thought this was a very informative webinar, and we got some really great information about where we were, where we're going, and some best practices to go forward for all of our participants and all the industry participants to be successful next year. And wishing everybody a happy and a healthy holiday season and a wonderful new year, and hoping for and wishing for a fantastic 2023 and much success to everyone here. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone who joined here today. Feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions that you may have after the webinar. Have a wonderful day.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.